So I don't know if you guys watch or listen to any other news feeds, podcasts, but there's one idea that is thrown around a lot, and one that I'm caught up with, that I watch and keep up with, and it's this idea of the narrative. I've mentioned it before with you guys, but talking about the narrative, what some group wants to do, what they want to accomplish, what story they're trying to write. And there's something that is no secret to most people when it comes to writing a story, when it comes to being the author. If you're the author, you're in control. You have the power to write something the way you want it. Power controls the narrative. Most of us are familiar with a few of these companies, these platforms. Facebook, for instance. Now, Facebook doesn't own just Facebook. Facebook has other companies that they control. Something called a WhatsApp. Again, some type of social media communication application. Instagram, another very big and popular social media platform. A method in which I can get my opinion, my ideas out to you. What about Google? And so I found this interesting. This is from New York Daily News. And this is back from 2015, so obviously it's a little dated, but some things probably have changed. And when I think of things have changed, they've probably accumulated more. But this is what they write. Alphabet will be a large company which oversees other companies such as Google. And so this idea of Alphabet is Google having taken many companies, many businesses, and putting it into one larger group, an Alphabet, because they fulfill, I'm pretty sure, every letter of the alphabet with different companies and entities that they're a part of. And it goes on. Some of the other companies include Life Extension Project, Calico, and a drone delivery venture called Wing. However, Google will still retain control of the products we all know: search, ads, maps, YouTube, Google Play Store, and Android. Again, those are pretty big companies. I think you can ask 99% of Americans what Google or YouTube or Facebook is, and they're going to know what those are. They're going to know what companies those are. And so there was a recent article that involved Amazon and a company that they were buying. They were going to buy MGM, movie production. They spent $8.4 billion USA Today is telling us on buying this. Movies, TV shows, any kind of screen time is very influential. It speaks to its audience. It tells us, the author tells us what they want us to hear. I mean, that makes sense, right? If I'm writing a book, if I'm writing a movie, I have this idea in my head. I'm going to put on paper. I'm going to put it on screen. I have some idea that I want to relay to you, the audience, the viewer, the reader, that I want you to pick up on. I am literally trying to influence you with my thoughts. And sure, we can say, well, ever from the very beginning of time, that could be what someone's trying to do. If someone's trying to tell someone something, a scenario, a situation, if someone's trying to discuss something with someone, debate something with someone, they're trying to persuade the other person to come along to their side, to adapt to their way of thinking. So it's not so much that we want to change that, but that we should understand what a particular person, company, entity is trying to persuade us with. What are they trying to tell us? What are they trying to put into our minds? In this USA Today article, it writes, Amazon's acquisition of MGM highlights a shift to consolidation in a competitive market for streaming services. Again, it sounds like business. It sounds like business as usual. Streaming has been the latest fad. And in this article kind of equates that to the COVID-19 shutdown and isolation and things like that, which is true. Don't let a crisis go to waste, right? But it's competition. It's competitive. I want to be better than someone else, and vice versa. They're fighting to have you watch their stuff. And again, I would be leery of, do I trust what Amazon, what MGM wants to put in my view? Do I trust AT&T and HBO and CNN? Do I trust the things that they are wanting to relay to me? Do I trust them? For months at least, I've become more I've become more open and seeing the clear picture that media sources typically don't have my best interest in mind. They tell me what fits their narrative. They tell me what they want me to see, what they want me to believe. They tell me the things that go along with their ideas. And it's not necessarily what I want my ideas to be. And it's definitely not what I would say is true or accurate. There's this memorial coming up for the Tulsa Race Massacre. CBS News wrote this article, but this was 100 years ago. That's the memorial. The memorial that's coming up. And we've talked about this before. This idea of racism. We've talked about this before. But the title of it is Tulsa Race Massacre. Survivors remember Greenwood before white mob tore it all down. And so just on the headline alone, it makes me stop and think, why those words? Are they true? I wasn't there. Based on what I've been told, yeah, those are true. Those words are true. White mob, white people tore down this particular area of black civilization. I have no problem with that. Not with the fact that they tore it down. I have no problem with the headline and what they're saying. What I do have a problem with is whenever we have double standards. We have We have when we lean way too far to one side and we don't even touch the other side of the scale. Why did we not see this from last summer's problems? Why did we not hear about a black mob that tore down numerous cities? We didn't see things like that because that didn't fit the narrative. It didn't fit the ideas that they had and that they were trying to push along to us. If we had written something like that, if someone had written an article like that, man, they would have gotten some flack for that. This article goes on. It says the Tulsa Massacre took place 100 years ago. So 100 years ago. I want you to remember that. But it's still clearly ingrained in the minds of survivors. Viola Fletcher, and she's 107 now, and Leslie Benningfield Randall, and she's 106. So obviously these ladies were alive then. They were 7 and 6 years old, and so they were potentially exposed to that. They potentially saw that. They potentially lost someone from that. They were most likely affected from it. It sounds like. I wasn't there. I don't know these ladies. But my wife and I were talking about, not this situation, but something similar. It says it's still clearly ingrained in the minds of the survivors. Now, when I hear that, when I read that, what comes to my mind is that they're still being affected by it. They're still letting it control them. It's still, they don't have peace about it. They haven't let it go. And my wife would be the first to tell you, and I'd be the first to tell her that, I am definitely not the most sympathetic guy. There's things that, yes, were they affected by it? Sure, we're going to go with that. We're going to assume they were affected by it, and obviously being 7 to 6, there's no way you can grasp that kind of trauma that one could experience from that. But I'm telling you that if 100 years have passed and it's still clearly ingrained in the minds of them, then from the age of 7 and 6 to 107 and 106, then they haven't had peace. They haven't lived a peaceful life. They haven't lived. There's no way they enjoyed living. I mean, but that goes on to a whole different story and topic of whom do we place our hope in and our peace, and where do we receive that from? And obviously that's just Jesus Christ. And it's hard to expect someone, Fletcher and Randall, if they don't know who God is, they don't have that relationship with him, it's hard to expect them to grasp that that unexplainable peace and hope. But I'm here to tell you that if you lived your life from 7 to 107 and you never got over this situation or let it go or moved on, then I feel very sorry for the life you must have lived. I honestly don't believe it should still be affecting you. I think you'll have memories of it and you'll be reminded of it potentially, but I have no doubt in my mind that you should not let it consume you. You should not let it consume you. Again, this really just goes back to the idea of who do you place your hope and peace in, and Who do you place your hope in? Where do you find your peace? That's the $1,000,000 question. But that article went on. It says, but between May 31st and June 1st of 1921, the neighborhood was burned down and destroyed. Again, it's just a little funny that we're talking about a neighborhood was burned down. And from last summer, when BLM did their rioting, their peaceful protest, as they call it, when they did that, there was numerous cities across our nation that were destroyed. Businesses, homes, government facilities. There were multiple people who were killed in the wake of all this disaster. Again, why aren't we saying something about that? Why are we not remembering that and taking steps in the direction for this, when obviously 9 months later, that's still probably fresh on someone's mind, more so than 100 years ago, when most people are probably dead who would have experienced that. It doesn't fit the agenda, the narrative that the storytellers are telling. CBS News, again, they have another article. And, it's frustrating to see how much stuff they want to push down you. And it's also a little sad that most Americans aren't realizing it or aren't doing anything about it, don't care enough to do anything about it. One thing that this guy I watch, one thing that he likes to say a lot is that Republicans and conservatives, we just like to dust it off. These little bitty things that happen, these little bitty hiccups, because they're not a big deal. Maybe we'll stand our ground on a bigger topic, but these little things, we'll dust them off and we'll move on. We'll do what the Democratic side wants and we'll move on. And as much as I'm for that, depending on the situation, I definitely agree with what he says, and that's, we can't do that with everything. If we do that with everything, then we lose power, and we become just he calls them squishes. We have no backbone, no spine anymore. We just cower to them and do whatever they tell us to do. And it's like a snowball effect. We start off by saying yes to this, and we say yes to this, and it gets bigger and bigger. And then we don't know where to stop it at, because we've pushed the line. We keep moving the line of integrity. We keep moving the line of morals. We keep moving it further and further down. So CBS News wrote this article, Karine Jean-Pierre becomes first black woman in 30 years to lead White House press briefing. So again, first two things I noticed: she's black and she's a female. That's what the current administration wants to push, and you'll see this in this writing. So this is White House Principal Deputy Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre made history when she stepped behind the podium in the James S. Brady briefing room on Wednesday afternoon, becoming just the second African-American woman to lead a formal White House press briefing and the first in 30 years. She says, "It's a real honor to be standing here today. I appreciate the historic nature, I really do. But I believe that being behind this podium, being in this room, being in this building is not about one person. It's about what we do on behalf of the American people," Jean-Pierre said. And she goes on, clearly, the president believes that representation matters, and I appreciate him giving me this opportunity. And it's another reason why I think we're all so proud that this is the most diverse administration in history. And she's definitely not wrong there as far as the diversity that goes in this administration. It's sad whenever you have obviously our president making decisions like this, but you have companies and businesses doing the same thing. It's sad whenever the first thing that we're looking at as a society is what sex are they? What's their race? What are their sexual beliefs? And now there's so many of them, I can't even keep up with them. I heard something the other day that there's too many male pilots, air pilots. We need to hire more females. And the funny thing is, as a passenger of one of those planes, I could care less if you're a man or a woman. I just want to have someone who passed, their flying class with the highest score. I don't want you to be a woman just because you're a woman. I want to have a pilot that's a pilot that can fly the aircraft. That's what I want. And Biden's administration is so focused on getting more females, more black people. Our health our health official, is a transgender woman. I don't think a man who's pretending to be a woman is the one person we want in charge of our health. Obviously, his mental health is lacking severely. The article goes on. Jean-Pierre is President Biden's number 2 press aide under Press Secretary Jen Psaki, and had conducted 5 off-camera gaggles with press and smaller media availabilities with the traveling press on Air Force One, but she had yet to hold an on-camera briefing at the White House briefing room. She kicked off the briefing Wednesday afternoon by noting the Senate confirmations of Kristen Clarke, the first black woman to lead the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, and Shaquita Brooks LaSure, who confirmed the lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Brooke LaSure is the first black woman to head the agency. Again, both of these two figures are black ladies. I have nothing against their race being black. I have nothing against the fact that they're a woman. I do have a problem with the emphasizing of such sex and race. Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why is it being done? Well, I think it's being done the same reason that our president thought that he needs to get so wrapped up in and consumed with the George Floyd death and trial and putting his 2 cents in. That's a problem. That did not call for him to be consumed with. I want my president of the United States to be dealing with something larger than that, especially when the situation is handled in a totally wrong way. I want my leader to be leading I don't want my leader to be trying to be someone's friend. I see that a lot. I hear that a lot in my day-to-day activities, in my job, and in other stores that are affiliated with us. Too many times, a manager, a supervisor, a boss wants to be someone's friend. Holding a management position myself, I don't go to work to be your friend. My primary objective when I go to work is to do the will of my Father in heaven. That's my primary objective. My second objective is that in everything I do unto the Lord. I give my 100% effort to work and work hard at my job to achieve the best and greatest results that I can do, because I believe I'm pleasing my Father in heaven. I'm pleasing God, I'm pleasing Christ with my actions here on earth. So don't misunderstand me. I'm doing his will first by doing whatever he needs me to do. And if that's to be a friend to my coworkers, my subordinates, then I will be there for them. I help them. But I'm not there to be their friend. I'm there to get the job done. And if I'm not leading and being the proper manager, then I'm not helping definitely the company I'm working for, and I'm definitely not helping them. I'd be hurting them. I want to lead as Christ led. You can read all about it in the Gospels, and when Christ was out with his disciples, when he was talking to the crowds, when he was performing miracles, when he was just with his group of acquaintances, his disciples, then he did what he knew was best. He did what he knew he needed to do, not necessarily what was best for them and what would interest them. Did he want to take care of them? Did he want to do what they wanted? Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. But he was never going to do something that went against his will and the will of his Father. And he was never going to do anything that he ultimately knew was not good for them. He wanted to do God's will, and he wanted to do what was right for them and for his mission, his ministry. Paul tells us this in 1 Corinthians. For the kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but of power. The kingdom of God is not a matter of talk. It's not a matter of just saying something and spewing something out of my mouth. But it's of power. And when I think of power, I think of doing, I think of action. I think of the ability to do something. The kingdom of God is not a matter of talk, but power. And that's the thing I see too often, is that we as followers of Christ, we like to say things, we like to put things out there, we like to chime in on social media, but we don't like to take it a step further. We don't like to do something about it. We don't like to put ourselves in vulnerable positions. We don't like to take the leap of faith. We're nice and comfy and cozy where we're at. That's not what God called us to do. I definitely believe that the conservative Republican Party is way more grounded on a biblical foundation than the Democratic left side is. Just simply based on beliefs and decisions that the left likes to make. You know, they're pro-abortion, pro-choice. They're pro-transgenderism, of us thinking that God somehow made a mistake and made you a girl, and oops, he meant to make you a boy. The left is for homosexuality. They push that. They push the idea that boys can like boys and girls can like girls. And that's not what the Bible says. And the list can go on and on. And so, again, that's another reason why I want to push for something more in my life. I want to push for something to happen because I feel this burden and this need for something, and I want to help make things happen. I want to help move the dial in the right direction, because every day it seems like the Conservative Party is allowing the left and the Democratic side to push more and more and more, push us more and more off the grid, more and more, and they're taking the power, they're taking the screen time. Don't get me wrong, I believe it's a tough fight, and some of them have given up because for that reason. But I don't want us to. I want us as followers of Christ, first and foremost, to do the will of our Father in heaven, to focus on Him, to seek Him in His will, and then we allow other things to trickle from that. He has His timing. He knows what's going to happen. He won't be taken off guard. He can't be mocked. The Bible tells us that. So I ask you, as followers of Christ, as people who want to build up and continue to have the foundation that our forefathers founded this country on, I ask you to join me in seeking what your part, what your role is to play in these ever-changing times that we're in. So as always, I would appreciate if you like what you're, if you like the video that you're watching, if you like it, comment, tell me your thoughts, give me your questions. I'd be happy to talk with you. If there's something I've said that you don't agree with, let me know. Maybe I said something out of line, or I misspoke. I'd be happy to apologize for that. Or I would like to double down on a thought that you might disagree with, because again, I want to get my point across, and I believe it's not my point alone. It's God's point. I'm just the messenger, and I always want to be that way. And if I ever get away from that, then I would beg God to point me in the right direction, and to have someone else step in and enlighten me. So I appreciate you guys watching, checking in, and I will see you next time.